I solved my center of gravity problem for the Recruit, so I'm much closer to the maiden flight now. I'm going to use this little 1500 3S battery instead of this 2200 3S battery, and it's just enough weight difference to where the center of gravity is just really nice. Oops, there we go. It's just really kind of level, just kind of is centered. So there's nothing else I have to do on the inside of this. Gotta develop me a little checklist for turning on the camera in the front and turning on the FPV camera and such. But changing from this battery to 1500 milliwatt hour for the maiden flight just really brought everything together. That's the way I'm going to maiden it. I need do nothing else to it for the maiden flight. In preparation for the maiden flight, I have finished my radio settings. I added some Expo 3 rates, a disarm arm switch, basically a fancy throttle cut to the radio. Added some telemetry to the radio, just playing with that for future models. But now when I turn on the radio and it's set up for the Recruit, this is what you hear.
Welcome to OpenTX. Takeoff, stabilize mode, Expo off, high rates, disarmed.
That's because this switch I assigned to the modes. There's 3 of them.
Manual mode, acro mode, takeoff, stabilize mode.
Takeoff, stabilize mode there. Manual mode in the center.
Manual mode.
And acro mode, or 2D stabilization all the way up.
Acro mode. Takeoff, stabilize mode.
Now I added this 2-position switch in to give me 70% expo for the maiden flight. I'll calm it down to 50 or 20 later, but that's what this switch does.
Expo on, expo off.
Then I added 3 rates on this switch, which I'm in high rates right now. Center position is
middle rates.
The lower position is
low rates.
And then back to the top is
high rates.
And then the fancy throttle cut I created is over on this switch. It's an arm, disarm, throttle cut, whatever. It stops the output on channel 3, and once it's armed, which you pull this down to arm it,
armed,
and push it up to disarm it. If the throttle is up at all when it's armed, it doesn't truly arm, although the radio says it doesn't truly arm. You can tell. Now, for it to actually arm, you have to have the throttle come all the way to the 0 position, and then it actually arms. But if the throttle is up at all, it will not arm. Such that right now, don't want to run the prop into the table. You can see that right now it is armed, and when I turn up the throttle just a little bit, I get throttle. But now if I disarm it,
disarmed,
it does disarm, But when I go back to arm without lowering that throttle, even the little bit that I put it up,
Armed.
I am armed, but you notice going up on the throttle doesn't do diddly. It doesn't actually arm until that throttle gets down to the 0 position again. At that moment right there, it armed, and I'm going to push it up just gently again. So this is a fancy throttle cut.
Disarmed.
Even though it says armed, if that throttle is anywhere but totally down, minus 100,
Armed.
it doesn't actually arm. And that keeps me from arming it with the throttle any place but 0. Now that I've pulled it to 0, it will start again.
Disarmed.
So I'll go into that later, perhaps, if anybody's interested in how that works. I also added in a new user screen for some iNav telemetry, just playing with it. Right now, the only telemetry I've got going between the radio and the receiver is the RSSI, or link quality. It shows there. Now, I also added another telemetry widget that is for mapping, not survey type mapping, but with GPS coordinates, putting the drone position on a map. And that's in this screen. Again, you can see the RSSI is 99 up at the top of the screen, so technically this screen is working. It doesn't have any telemetry coming from a flight controller yet, so it doesn't have a GPS coordinate, so it cannot display any map data on the screen. But if it was getting GPS data from a flight controller, it would bring up that location's map on the screen. And then I created one last screen with the channels that are being used, 2 timers, and another model screen that I'm working on. And then we'll go back to the main screen here. So that's basically an overview of the setup of the radio. Little example here. I'll go full up on the elevators, and then I'll pull on the low rates.
Low rates.
You see that's 50% of the throw anymore. That's full throw up elevator, but it's this would be 75%. So it's a little further throw on the control surfaces, and then high rates is all the way up, full throw.
High rates. Middle rates. Low rates.
50%,
Middle rates.
75%,
High rates.
100% throw. So that's what's going
Middle
on
rates.
here with these
Low
3
rates.
modes.
High rates.
Just preparing for it to be a little wild on the Maiden. And then as far as the stick position, how far the stick, see, I'm just moving the right stick a little bit back and forth, and you can see the surface movement on the aileron. And I'll pull on the Expo.
Expo on.
And you see that same amount of movement was just really dampened down in the aileron.
Expo off.
Expo back off, it's going quite a bit of throw.
Expo on.
Dampens that down just in the middle. It'll still go full throw, and Expo will control that full
Manual
throw.
Mode. Acro mode.
Oops.
Takeoff. Stabilize mode. Low rates. Middle rates. High rates. Low rates. High rates.
But the center position in Expo is dampened. When I get out about halfway, then it starts acting normally, but the center section is just
Expo off.
kind of quieted down for the maiden flight. So I don't know anything else except for a checklist that I need to create before the maiden flight.